Well, hello again, folks. I know it's only been a few days since my last review, so I am on top of it right now. Um, I went to see The Dark Tower, just got back home from going to see it, and I rarely go see movies opening weekend, but this one I felt like I wanted to go in soon to avoid the reviews and the podcasts and everything because I really wanted to go in with kind of like a clean slate and form all of my own opinions. So, The Dark Tower, if you don't know, has a kind of long and sordid history. It's based on Stephen King's novels. There are 7 books, so it's quite a long story. And I have only read the first one. I read the first one, and I mean, it was fine, but it just really wasn't really my cup of tea. So I did not commit to reading all 7 books. But this movie, because it's such a huge story and it's beloved by so many people, they've been trying to make it into a movie for years. And it was going to be, I think, a series of movies, and then it was going to be like a movie and a TV show and a movie, and they were really going to try to cover, the scope of The Dark Tower. And somehow we ended up with only one film that doesn't closely follow any book, and this movie was, I believe, under 2 hours. So, of course, any interpretation that's distilled into that small of a point is going to leave a lot of stuff out, and you're probably maybe not going to make anybody happy with that. And I think maybe that's what they did. They said, let's just make a movie in the spirit of The Dark Tower. Let's not try to do what the books did, and we'll see how that goes. Now, I think that by and large, horror fans have not expected great things from this movie. It was radio silent for a long time. The trailer just came out, I think maybe a couple months ago, but nobody was really saying anything about it. There wasn't a lot of marketing, and so that's never a good sign. And so everyone, I think, just expected it to just not be good. But for me, I thought, I didn't read the books. I don't have an emotional attachment really to this story. I know the main elements. So I thought, I might actually be able to enjoy this where possibly others cannot. So I went in kind of with a really open mind. And the cast, I thought, was a really strong selling point for this movie. I thought the casting of Idris Elba as Roland was out of the box and kind of genius. And then, of course, Matthew McConaughey as the Man in Black. I thought, great. The 2 main characters, we have strong actors. I think that'll be good. So I thought at least we have that going for it. Watching their performances will be good. And I also really like how the man who represents evil, the Man in Black, is a white man, and the man who represents good and light is a black man. I thought that's a nice little contrast, and that's not how it's written in the story. I'm pretty sure Roland in the story is a Caucasian. So I thought, well, that's neat and interesting and kind of a cool thing. So, and I will say that Idris Elba was great. He and the actor who played Jake, whose name I don't know, they were both fantastic. Matthew McConaughey, surprisingly not so much. I didn't love his performance, and I don't know if it was his acting or if it was his dialogue, because his dialogue was not good. It's a little cheesy. And I think maybe this might be a case of like Nightmare on Elm Street remake syndrome, where like Jackie Earle Haley was actually the perfect person to play the next Freddy, but he was given just crap dialogue, and so it didn't work out, and it wasn't his fault. Interestingly enough, Jackie Earle Haley has a small part in this film, and I'm wondering if at some point he like leaned over to Matthew McConaughey and was like, "Hey Matt, I've been there. It sucks, doesn't it?" So that was a little disappointing because I was really hoping that Matthew McConaughey would just be awesome. Again, like I said, I don't know if it's necessarily his fault, but it fell short for me. Another positive, though, in addition to Idris Elba and the character of Jake, I thought the action in this movie was pretty good, and I think that's because they didn't do anything like super groundbreaking, but usually you're watching a superhero movie or an action movie, and you have to suspend a lot of disbelief when it comes to the things they're doing. The explosions and the jumping through the air and what they're able to do, and it's a little more believable with superheroes, but like this isn't reality. This could never really happen. But with Roland as a gunslinger, he has supernatural powers. He's from a different world. So all of the things he's doing when he's like jumping on people and flying through the air and the way he loads his gun is all perfect and beautiful. And you actually think, well, he's from another world. He has supernatural abilities and he's been practicing this for who knows how long. We don't know how old he is. But it is hinted at that he's older, much older than like regular humans. So you can actually believe that the things he's doing are possible. And then of course, the Man in Black, he creates fire with his hands and he just tells people what to do and he influences them that way. So all of the like supernatural over the top action stuff is it's believable because it comes from a supernatural world. So I enjoyed that quite a bit because I find myself just skeptical in superhero movies and action movies. A lot of times I'm like, I know, you just have to roll with it, but it's hard for me sometimes to be completely immersed in it because of that. So those were kind of my pros. My cons about the Dark Tower. I didn't really give a synopsis, and so I can get into that now. The Dark Tower it's basically, it's the center of the universe, the tower, and the tower protects the whole universe. And that includes our world, Earth, and all the other worlds that exist. So basically, it's kind of like a Star Wars situation where there are different planets and different worlds and different dimensions. But all of the worlds are in the same dimension, and there's a dark dimension that lays outside of our world, and the Dark Tower protects us from that dark dimension, because out in the dark dimension lives all of the monsters and the evil. By the way, that's where Pennywise comes from, the dark dimension. And the Man in Black wants to pull down the Dark Tower and let all of the evil and the monsters and the chaos in, because he's just an inherently evil character. He may have more motivation in the books. I don't know. That's it in a nutshell, but you can just tell that the story is supposed to be so much bigger. And obviously there are 7 books, so the story is huge and giant. And Stephen King puts a ton of detail into one book, so I can't imagine what he would do with 7. But the story does feel kind of rushed. And you can just tell it should be bigger. The very first scene, we see the Dark Tower, we see the Man in Black, we see him trying to, extract brain power from the children to take down the tower, and you're just, with no backstory, you're just thrown into this. And you just kind of have to say, okay, this is what it is, I'm along for the ride. But I think this movie, even though they decided not to do a series, this movie could have been 2.5 hours long, maybe given us a little more of a slow build, a little more of a backstory, a little bigger of a final confrontation between Roland and the Man in Black, because even that was just kind of rushed and it wasn't as big and as difficult as I feel like it should have been. So the story it felt a little slim and a little shortchanged, and it just feels like there's a lot we don't know. Also, as I already mentioned, it is a little cheesy. Some of the dialogue is a little cheesy. Mostly the dialogue from the Man in Black is what I find to be cheesy. Roland is funny a couple times, but I feel like it's really genuine because he's not trying to be funny. It's just a culture clash of his world and then coming to New York, and he doesn't understand our culture, and so he makes a couple of comments that I feel are actually pretty effective. But just the Man in Black, he's supposed to be this evil, imposing figure, and he just kind of I don't know. He just gives off a level of cheese that I can't buy into. Also, not to keep beating the Matthew McConaughey horse, but I do feel like even though he wasn't good in this role, I feel like he's perfectly set up for a Randall Flagg in The Stand. If they ever make The Stand, they need to just hang on to Matthew McConaughey and say, hey, hang on to a little bit of that cheese and personality, and you can put that into Randall Flagg, and that would be great. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay, don't worry about it. But if you do know The Stand and you know the character Randall Flagg, you know what I'm talking about, and Matthew McConaughey would be great. Because I see Randall Flagg as a Texas denim-wearing dude, the walking dude. So anyway, I think that's about it. I don't think that The Dark Tower was a bad movie. It's not the worst Stephen King adaptation by far, which is not saying much, but still. So as a casual viewer without a back history and emotional attachment to the books, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, but I enjoyed it. And I took my husband with me because he likes superhero movies and action movies. he likes a supernatural story and also some elements of horror. So I really thought that he would probably like it. And he did. I waited on him to tell me what he thought first, and he said, yeah, I liked that. I thought, I don't think that was a bad movie. And so I think a lot of people will feel that way, and I think that this movie will probably make a lot of money. I don't think we're going to see a sequel, but you never know. So anyway, I'm really anxious now to go out and read reviews and listen to some podcasts and see what the rest of the world thought about The Dark Tower. They might have felt the same as me. They might be way off from what I think, but those are my thoughts. So if you've seen The Dark Tower, I would love to know what you think. And you can check out the rest of my video reviews on Facebook, or you can go to kiroskiro.reviews/reviews, which is a little bit of obnoxious, but anyway, so thanks for listening to this super long review, and I will talk to you guys next time.